Hello, this is Wes Bridle, and this is another Kingdom Calling Economic Update video. It's been a long time if you're a regular follower of our videos. It's been several months, and I apologize for that. Because of that, I haven't stopped reading, even though I haven't made a video in a while, so I've had a huge pile to go through. I discarded most of that pile, but still, I'm going to make a bunch of videos here because there were a lot of important things that were going on. In today's video, I'm going to get into kind of the bigger overarching economic aspects, and then we'll get into different specific things in the coming videos. All of these videos are follow-ups to the Coming Storm video, which we put out a year and a half ago, and there is a link right next to this video where you can go and watch that for free. I highly recommend that because it gives you the big picture of what's going on, whereas we're going to talk about snippets here. These things are important to know ongoing, but that gives you the big picture. Also, if you do receive our newsletter, which you get when you sign up for that, it's easy to opt out if that's not something you're interested in. But if you have been getting my newsletter, you have been getting my thoughts on the economy because I hold that as a higher priority than these videos. So hopefully that's been helpful, and we've given you some indication of what has been happening here recently, just before it happened. I didn't put a bunch of economic stats into this. That was easy for me to throw out because those things are usually interesting right when they happen, but a couple months later they're not so interesting. But we've had a housing drop that is longer and deeper than even the Great Depression. So we had a little bump up when the government was paying people to move into a house, but as soon as that was over, we've now gotten more and more severe. The inflation is creeping everywhere into the system. Producer prices are showing it, consumer prices are starting to show it, and a lot of these notes will be kind of random, and I think I come back to that in a little bit, but I think there was a stat that 84% of the CPI is showing inflation, yet the overall CPI number doesn't show inflation. A big part of that is because real estate is such a large part, and real estate, of course, is crashing. But inflation is not throughout the system, it's throughout the world. Every country in the world recognizes this, but we're kind of ignoring it. We're just putting our hands in our ears and covering our eyes because that's just not what Bernanke wants to see. We're told stocks are cheap, but actually if you look at the current average historical price, or the price is right now, it is pretty average historically, not maybe compared if most of us are kind of middle to younger age. They seem cheap compared to where they were in the late 90s, for instance, but historically they're about average, so they're not exactly cheap. The media is constantly telling us that stock prices are cheap, but if you factor into the fact that profit margins for these big companies are at record high levels, those profit margins always compress. That's the nature of business. If people are making a high profit margin, somebody else will come in and undercut them. And so if you look at things that way and understand profits margins will get compressed, the stock market is quite expensive. And we've been seeing in the last couple months that it's been dropping a bit. Unemployment is a mess. You need 160,000 new jobs in order to stay even on unemployment. So that's why when you see recently we had 54,000 new jobs added and everyone's really upset. Well, for one, they're upset because it was a lot lower than economists predicted. But secondly, that's not nearly enough just to stay even on unemployment. That means we're going negative. And payrolls are below where they were 10 years ago, even though the population has grown 10%. So it just gives you an idea. The federal government will no longer be supporting jumbo loans. So I'm jumping around here. But for real estate, this is going to be a huge dent in the market. And it's good overall. The federal government shouldn't have their hands in every pie the way they do. But the reality is when you're trying to extricate yourself from that situation, you're going to go through a hard time. And so the government, starting at the end of September, is getting out of jumbo loans. Those are the larger mortgages for homes. That area, or that segment of the market is going to be devastated because of that. Payroll, let's see, no, I just did that one. Sentiment has been bearish lately. This is the only thing I see out there that makes me think maybe the stock market will really bounce a lot higher. I expect it will continue having a really short-term bounce, but that might lead you to think that we're going to have a bigger, more prolonged bounce, is the fact that people are pretty bearish out there. A lot of people see the bad indicators. Now maybe it's just so bad it tanks, and that's kind of what I'm predicting, that we have a short-term bounce up in the market that we've started about well, last week was basically flat, but we're seeing a little bit of a bounce now. I think that will continue for a little bit, and then we're going to see a big crash. Real estate, let's see. Oh, real estate's doing terribly everywhere except for, guess where? Washington, D.C. Because the government just continues to spend more and more money. The real estate market in Washington, D.C. is doing well. This is strange. I, of course, didn't really see this, but there's a lot of reporting of mass violence across the country. Memorial Day weekend, there were reports in Chicago, New York, Miami, Charlotte, Myrtle Beach, Nashville, Boston, others. I read an article about some just crazy stuff going on in Chicago, some of the nicer areas, Miracle Mile or something like that. I don't know Chicago that well. But areas where you wouldn't think this sort of thing is going on, it's just an indication when things start turning bad, people that, obviously these aren't probably your friends, but people that would otherwise be orderly civilians become not so orderly. State and local governments across the U.S. are expected to lay off 110,000 people in the third quarter. Again, I mentioned the stock markets fell for 6 weeks. They were basically flat last week, but technically they were up, so that was the first up week, so that was good. We're showing a little strength, and so I already talked about kind of what I see happening there. The corporate bond market is drying up. There are a lot of signs out there, and I'm going to talk about, it's difficult when I segment these videos. Everything's interrelated, so it's hard. What immediately comes to mind is what's going on in China, but I've got that segmented in a world video that I'm going to make here in a minute, and that you'll be able to see in a day or a couple of days. Everything's interrelated, but I have to segment these in order to get all the information out. There are a lot of different things going on out there that look like we're in for some serious times here, probably starting, I've been talking about it for quite a while. I think things are going to get ugly the second half of this year. So anyways, want to let you know, again, if you haven't seen that Coming Storm video, it's important that you see that to really prepare yourself and your family for these things. There are ways to be ready to even do well financially in these times relatively. It's going to be hard times for everybody because things we've known for a long time are going to change. But you need to do your best to prepare. If you have any questions, just shoot me a line, and thank you for watching this video.